The second the front door closed, my whole world broke apart. I stood in my sister's living room, hearing the taxi drive away from the curb. Brooke and Jared were gone, heading to their Caribbean cruise. 5 days of sun and fancy drinks, while I stayed behind to babysit their daughter. I turned with a smile, ready to ask Nola what she wanted to do first. Maybe we could bake cookies, watch a movie, or read together like we usually did. But Nola wasn't reaching for her iPad. She wasn't typing a message for the text-to-speech app to say out loud. She was just standing there, staring at me with a look I had never seen in her 8 years of life. Then my niece, the child I believed was born mute, the little girl who hadn't made a single sound since she was a toddler, opened her mouth. "Auntie, don't drink the tea Mom made. She planned something bad." Her voice was clear and smooth, like she had been talking her entire life. My blood felt like it turned into ice. "Let me go back about 6 hours, because you need to understand how I got here. How I ended up standing in my sister's house, realizing that everything I thought I knew about my family was a carefully built lie. My name is Lisa Rains. I'm 32 years old. I work as an accountant at a mid-size firm in Columbus, Ohio. Exciting, I know. While other people dream of exotic trips and romantic adventures, I dream about perfectly balanced spreadsheets. My therapist says I use numbers to feel in control. She's probably right. That morning started out normal enough. Saturday coffee, a quiet apartment. I was actually enjoying the peace when my phone rang. Brooke, my older sister, 6 years between us, but sometimes it felt like 60. Her voice was sweet and smooth, which should have been my first warning sign. Brooke only used that voice when she wanted something. "Lisa, I have the biggest favor to ask." She explained that she and Jared had booked an anniversary cruise. 5 days in the Caribbean. Very romantic. Very last minute. And they needed someone to watch Nola. Of course, I said yes, because that's what I always said to Brooke. I told her I'd love to spend time with Nola, and I truly meant it. I genuinely adored my niece. Even though talking through an iPad could be tiring sometimes, there was something special about Nola. She had big, observant eyes that seemed to notice everything. When I read to her, she would lean against my shoulder, and I could feel her relax, like my voice was a safe place for her. You see, Nola was born with a rare condition. At least, that's what Brooke always told everyone. Something neurological that affected her ability to speak. The doctors noticed it when she was about 3. Brooke said nothing could be done. I never questioned it. Why would I? She was my sister. Mothers know their children. Besides, I wasn't around much during Nola's early years. I had taken a job in Chicago right after she was born. It was a good opportunity, and I couldn't turn it down. I'd fly home for Christmas, maybe visit for a weekend once in a while. By the time Nola was 3, she was already silent. Brooke had already built the whole story around it. I moved back to Ohio 2 years ago when our mom got sick. Cancer, the slow, painful kind. I wanted to be closer. I wanted to help. During those months, I spent more time with Nola. I read to her, brought her books, and tried to just be there. Even without words, we created something real between us. Our dad, Harold, had died 3 years before Mom. Heart disease. He was a quiet, steady man, the kind who fixed things without complaining. After he died, it felt like our family lost its anchor. When Mom finally passed away 14 months ago, she left behind a trust worth about $1.2 million. It was their entire life savings, Dad's life insurance, everything. The rules were simple. Both Brooke and I had to sign off on any major withdrawals. Mom was smart like that. She also left me the family house, since Brooke already owned property at the time. I thought it was fair back then. Now, I sometimes wonder if Mom knew something I didn't. Anyway, back to that Saturday morning. I drove to Brooke's house around noon. It was a beautiful place with a big lawn, the kind of house you'd see on a magazine cover. Brooke greeted me at the door with a hug, which surprised me. My sister was not really a hugger. "You're a lifesaver, Lisa. Truly." She looked perfect, as always. Hair done, nails done, designer luggage waiting by the door. Jared was outside, loading bags into the taxi that had just pulled up. He barely looked at me. Just a quick wave and a quiet hello. He looked nervous and sweaty, but Jared was always a bit jumpy, so I didn't think much of it. Brooke walked me through the house like I'd never been there before. Here's the kitchen. Here's Nola's room. Here's the TV remote. Then she opened the refrigerator and pulled out a large thermos with a yellow lid. I made this for you, she said, pushing it into my hands. Herbal tea for stress. You look tired, Lisa. You've been working too hard. Something about the way she said it felt wrong. Too serious. Too forceful. But I smiled and thanked her, because that's what I always did with Brooke. I smiled, I said thank you, and I never pushed back. She had always been the one with the answers, even when I didn't ask for them. When I went through a bad breakup at 25, Brooke's advice back then was lavender oil, green juice, and a vision board covered in George Clooney photos. Manifest your future husband, she'd said. I still have trust issues with vision boards. The taxi honked outside. Brooke hugged me again. 2 hugs in one day, definitely strange, and then she rushed out the door. Jared followed without saying a word. I watched them get into the car and disappear down the street. Then I closed the front door, turned around, and saw Nola standing there, staring at me like she was about to announce the end of the world. Auntie, don't drink the tea Mom made. She planned something bad. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The thermos was still in my hands, suddenly feeling like a bomb. My niece, the child I believed was born mute, had just spoken to me in a clear, perfect voice. And she was warning me that my own sister was trying to poison me. Before we go on, if you're enjoying this story, please hit the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read every comment, and your support truly means everything to me. Now, back to what happened next. I carefully set the thermos on the counter, like it was radioactive. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Then I turned to Nola and slowly lowered myself to my knees so we were eye to eye. Nola, I whispered. You can talk. She nodded. Her eyes were wide and scared, but there was something else there too, something strong and determined. I always could, Auntie. Mommy made me stop. The room felt like it was spinning. I put one hand on the floor to keep myself steady. What do you mean, she made you stop? That's when my 8-year-old niece told me a story that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. Nola was not born mute. She never had a neurological condition. That was a lie. A lie my sister had been telling for 5 years, starting when Nola was 3. Before that, Nola spoke like any normal toddler. She said her first words, learned new ones every day, sang songs, asked endless questions, and said I love you at bedtime. Then one afternoon, everything changed. Nola was playing upstairs in her room when she got thirsty. She quietly went downstairs to get some juice. Brooke was in the kitchen, talking on the phone. She didn't notice Nola standing in the doorway. Nola heard words. Most of them didn't make sense to her, but some did. Aunt Lisa, money, out of the picture. When Daddy's gone, then Mom, and then we get everything. She trusts me completely. She's so stupid. Nola was only 3 years old. She didn't know what out of the picture meant, but she understood Aunt Lisa. And she understood the cold, mean way her mommy said stupid. The next day, innocent and confused, Nola asked, Mommy, what does out of the picture mean? Brooke's face turned hard. She grabbed Nola's arms too tightly, leaving small bruises, and knelt down until they were face to face. Listen to me very carefully, she said. If you ever speak again, to anyone, about anything, something terrible will happen to Aunt Lisa. Your voice is dangerous. Every word you say hurts her. If you love your auntie, you will never make another sound. Do you understand? Nola loved me. I was the aunt who brought her picture books, the one who smiled at her like she was the most important person in the world. So Nola stopped talking. She was 3 years old, and she made a choice to give up her voice to protect me. I sat on Brooke's kitchen floor, tears pouring down my face as this child explained the sacrifice she had made. 5 years. 5 years of silence. 5 years of fear, believing that every word she spoke might hurt the person she loved most. And Brooke, my sister, the devoted mother, used that fear against her. She took Nola to doctors and played the role of a worried parent. She got a diagnosis of selective mutism, but she told everyone a different story. She said it was neurological, something Nola was born with, nothing that could be fixed. She made sure no one ever saw the real medical records. I was living in Chicago back then, visiting only a couple of times a year. I had no reason to doubt my own sister when it came to her child. My eyes landed on a crystal plaque sitting on the mantel. Mother of the Year. Brooke had won it from the community center 2 years ago. People praised her patience, her sacrifice, her dedication to her special needs daughter. I suddenly wanted to throw that plaque into the sun and watch it melt. "What else do you know, sweetheart?" I asked softly. "What else have you seen?" It turned out that being silent made Nola invisible. Adults forgot she was there. They spoke freely around her, assuming she couldn't understand, or that she couldn't tell anyone even if she did. Nola saw everything. She saw her mother practicing my signature again and again on scrap paper until it almost looked right. She heard phone calls about the trust and moving the money around. And before I ever suspected anything, she watched her father grow more and more afraid of her mother, agreeing with everything, never questioning her. She also saw Brooke put on a performance for neighbors, church friends, and teachers. The perfect act of a loving parent making sacrifices for her disabled child. And then, 2 nights ago, Nola heard something that made her realize she couldn't stay silent anymore. She crept to the top of the stairs, just like she had done hundreds of times before. Her parents were in the kitchen, planning. "The tea will make her sick enough to land in the ER, Brooke said. "Nothing deadly. Just bad stomach pain and extreme drowsiness. She'll be out for days." "What about Nola while we're gone?" Jared asked. "Mrs. Patterson next door will take her. I already told her Lisa has episodes sometimes." She believed it completely. "And while Lisa is in the hospital, we drive to Indianapolis. There's a lawyer there who doesn't know her. I have all the forged papers ready. We transfer the entire trust into my name. By the time Lisa recovers, it'll be done. She'll never be able to prove anything." There was no cruise. No Caribbean vacation. Just a plan to poison me, forge my signature, and steal over $1 million. My own sister. I pulled Nola into my arms and held her tight. This brave, incredible child. She had carried this secret for 5 years. She had watched her mother lie to everyone. And when it truly mattered, she found the courage to break her silence. "You saved me," I whispered into her hair. "You know that, right? You saved my life." She hugged me back, her small arms tight around my neck. "I couldn't let Mommy hurt you, Auntie. Not anymore." I looked at the thermos sitting on the counter. It looked harmless. Yellow lid. Homemade tea from my loving sister. Evidence. My tears stopped. Something cold and sharp settled in my chest. Brooke thought she had 5 days to take everything. She thought I'd be stuck in a hospital bed. Too sick to stop her. She was very, very wrong. The first call I made was to Gwen Mercer. Gwen and I met in college. She became a nurse. I became an accountant. Different paths, but we stayed close. She was the kind of friend who showed up with ice cream after breakups and told you the truth even when it hurt. I trusted her completely. She answered on the second ring. "Lisa, what's going on?" "Gwen, I need you to come to Brooke's house right now. Something happened, and I can't explain it over the phone. Please, just come." Something in my voice must have scared her. She didn't ask any questions. "I'm on my way." 40 minutes later, she was at the door, still wearing her scrubs, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "Talk to me." So I did. I told her everything. The tea. The plan. And Nola, sweet, silent Nola, who had spoken for the first time in 5 years to warn me. When I finished, Gwen was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Nola, who was sitting on the couch, watching us with those big, serious eyes. Gwen walked over and knelt in front of her. "You're the bravest kid I've ever met," she said softly. "Do you know that?" Nola almost smiled. Gwen stood up. "Okay. Business mode. First things first, this tea needs to be tested. I know someone at the hospital lab. She can run a rush test tonight. If there's anything in it, we'll know by morning." She pulled on a pair of latex gloves. Of course she had some in her purse. Carefully, she took a sample from the thermos and sealed it in a small container. "What kind of person poisons tea?" she muttered, shaking her head. "I always knew Brooke was off. Remember when she told you that haircut made your face look less round? That wasn't a compliment. That was psychological warfare, sister edition." I almost laughed. Almost. "Now," Gwen continued, "what else do we have? If she's been running this scam, there has to be more evidence." I looked at Nola. "Sweetheart, you said you know where Mommy keeps important papers." She nodded and climbed off the couch. "In the office," she said. "There's a locked drawer." "I know." "The code. How do you know the code?" I asked as I watched her type it in. "Lots of times she never noticed me," Nola said after a small, sad pause. "Nobody notices the quiet kid." She led us to Brooke's home office. It was neat and perfectly decorated, the kind of room you'd see in a magazine. There was a large desk, a computer, filing cabinets, and one drawer with a digital lock. 0315, Nola said. March 15th. Their wedding anniversary. Of course Brooke would use something sentimental. It probably made her feel clever. I entered the code. The drawer clicked open. What we found inside made my stomach twist. First, bank authorization forms with my signature on them. Except it wasn't really my signature. It was close, very close, but I could see the difference right away. The loop on my capital **L** was wrong. Anyone who knew my handwriting would catch it. Brooke had practiced, but she wasn't perfect. Second, bank statements from the trust account. 14 months of activity. Withdrawal after withdrawal, always under $15,000, just below the amount that would trigger automatic reports to federal authorities. Brooke had done her homework. The total was around $180,000. Gone. Stolen by my own sister while I trusted her completely. Third, printed emails between Brooke and an attorney in Indianapolis named Warren Ducker. They talked about an emergency transfer of the trust assets and mentioned my supposed mental instability and inability to handle money. The meeting was scheduled for day 4, exactly when the cruise was meant to be in full swing. Fourth, and this one almost broke me, was a folder labeled *** Lisa, mental health concerns ***. Inside were pages of handwritten notes in Brooke's writing. Dated entries describing my erratic behavior, my depression, my paranoid episodes. All lies. All of it. She had been building a case against me that was building a paper trail, getting ready to paint me as mentally unfit if I ever challenged her fraud. My own sister was preparing to call me crazy, destroy my credibility, take everything I had, and leave me with nothing, not even my reputation. Gwen photographed every document, every page, every date. "This is premeditated fraud," she said quietly. "This isn't impulsive. She's been planning this for over a year." My mind shifted into work mode. Accountant brain. Dates, patterns, monthly withdrawal amounts, signatures that almost, but not quite, matched. Numbers don't lie. And these numbers told a very clear story. Then Gwen's phone buzzed. Her contact at the hospital lab had rushed the t-test. The results showed a concentrated mix of a strong laxative and a sedative herb. Not deadly, but completely disabling. Anyone who drank it would be violently sick and barely conscious for 48 to 72 hours. Hospital-level sick. Exactly what Nola had warned me about. Brooke wasn't trying to kill me. She was too careful for that. She just needed me out of the way long enough to steal everything. I thought about my emergency savings account, $8,000 in a separate bank, one no one else knew about. A financial advisor had told me years ago to always keep walkaway money. I'd taken that advice and never mentioned it to my family. Now, that money was going to fund my fight. Sometimes boring financial planning really does save your life. There was one more call I needed to make. Kevin Calloway. We'd been in the same study group in college. He went to law school, I went into accounting. Now he was an assistant prosecutor in Franklin County. I called him and explained everything. When I finished, there was a long silence. Lisa, he finally said, trip. I'll figure it out, I said, then hung up. My hands were steady. My heart felt cold and clear. Gwen, sitting across from me, gave me a thumbs up. Oscar-worthy performance, she said. Really? That little shake in your voice at the end. Chef's kiss. Thanks, I said. I learned by watching Brooke fake emotions my whole life. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. A text from Brooke. Not a call. Not a worried voicemail asking which hospital I was in. Not a frantic message asking to talk to her daughter. Just a text. Oh no. Feel better soon. Don't worry about Nola. Mrs. P is great with kids. Rest up and take care of yourself. See you in a few days. Growing heart. I stared at that pink heart emoji for a long time. My sister might have poisoned me. She was actively planning to steal over $1 million from me. And her response was a cartoon heart and an exclamation point. I've seen people put more effort into replying to a wrong number text. At least add a worried face emoji. Brooke, show some range. She didn't even ask about the hospital, Gwen said, reading over my shoulder. Didn't ask which one. Didn't offer to come home. Didn't ask to talk to Nola. Nope. Gwen shook her head. Your sister is actually a sociopath. And I'm starting to think real sociopaths try harder than this. Over the next few hours, Gwen's husband, who worked in IT, gave us a quick crash course in social media tracking. Turns out Jared wasn't nearly as careful as Brooke. His Instagram still had location services turned on. He had posted a selfie at a coffee shop the day before, smiling like an idiot. The post was geo-tagged to Indianapolis, Indiana. No beach. No cruise ship. No Caribbean sunset. They were exactly where Nola said they'd be. While Gwen worked on tracking their digital trail, I went back to the evidence drawer. There had to be more. Brooke was too careful to stop there. She kept records of everything. I found them at the very bottom, hidden under a stack of old tax returns. Letters. Handwritten. Dated during our mother's final months. My hands started to shake as I read them. They were from Brooke to our mother, Patricia. Written while Mom was dying of cancer, weak, scared, fighting for every breath. In those letters, Brooke begged, then demanded, that Patricia change the will. Leave everything to Brooke. Cut me out completely. Lisa is single. She doesn't have real responsibilities like I do. I have a daughter to raise. I need this money. You always favored her anyway. This is your chance to finally make things right. If you ever loved me, you'll do this. The manipulation. The guilt. The cruelty of pressuring a dying woman. And then I found Mom's reply, handwritten on her personal stationery. The writing was shaky. She was so weak by then. But the words were firm. I will not punish Lisa for being responsible. I will not reward you for being greedy. The trust stays equal. This discussion is over. Do not bring this up again. I love you, but I'm disappointed in who you've become. Mom. Patricia had refused. Even on her deathbed, she protected me. So Brooke waited. She waited for our mother to die. And then she started forging. I sat on the floor of that perfect home office, holding my mother's final words in my hands, and I cried. Not for myself, but for Mom. For the betrayal she had seen in her own daughter before the end. Auntie. Nola's small voice came from the doorway. Yes, sweetheart. Are those letters from Grandma? Yes. She walked over and sat beside me on the floor. Her small hand slipped into mine. Grandma told me something once, she said quietly. When? Mommy wasn't in the room. She said, watch your mama, little one. Something is wrong in her heart. At the time, I thought she meant Mommy was sick, like something was wrong with her actual heart. I didn't understand back then. I think Grandma knew. I nodded. She always saw people clearly. Do you think she knew about me? Nola asked. That I wasn't really mute. I thought about my mother, sharp until the end, observant, the kind of woman who noticed everything but chose her battles carefully. I think, I said slowly, that Grandma trusted me to figure it out eventually. And she trusted you to be brave when it really mattered. Nola squeezed my hand. That evening, Kevin Calloway called with updates. Things were moving faster than I expected. The local police had been fully briefed. With evidence of fraud, forgery, and attempted poisoning, they were taking this very seriously. The FBI had also been consulted. Transferring money across state lines through deception was interstate wire fraud, a federal crime. Brooke had turned this into a federal case all by herself. And the Indianapolis lawyer, Warren Ducker. Kevin's contacts had spoken to him. It turned out Ducker already had doubts. The signatures on the authorization forms looked slightly off. He was close to canceling the meeting anyway. When authorities explained what was really happening, he agreed to cooperate fully. The sting was set for day 4. When Brooke and Jared walked into that law office expecting to finish their theft, the police would be waiting. Your job, Kevin reminded me, is to keep pretending. Keep sending updates about being sick. Make her believe everything is going exactly as planned. So I did. Day 2, I texted. Asterisk still really sick. Doctor thinks it might be food poisoning. So strange. Nola is being wonderful with Mrs. Patterson at asterisk day 3. Asterisk barely, asterisk keeping water down. So weak. Don't cut your trip short. I'll be fine. Just need rest. Asterisk with every message, I pictured Brooke reading it and smiling, thinking her stupid, trusting sister was exactly where she wanted her. That same day, Kevin arranged for a child advocacy specialist to take Nola's statement. It had to be done the right way, videotaped, with a child psychologist present, following every legal rule for child witnesses. Nola was nervous. She sat in a chair that was too big for her, her feet dangling above the floor. But when the questions started, she sat up straight. She used her voice, still new, still strange after 5 years of silence, and told them everything. What she overheard when she was 3. The threats. The fear. The choice to stop speaking. Years of watching and listening. And the night she heard the plan about the tea. When it was over, she looked at me through the observation window. That's the most I've talked since I was 3, she said. My voice is tired, but it feels good. Like I've been holding my breath underwater for years, and I finally came up for air. I wanted to rush in and hold her, but I had to wait. Rules were rules. When they finally let me see her, I hugged her so tight I probably squeezed the air right back out of her. One more day, I whispered. Just one more day, and this is over. She nodded against my shoulder. One more day. Day 4. Indianapolis, Indiana. 10:15 in the morning. Warren Ducker's law office, 3rd floor of a professional building with a nice view of downtown. One no one was going to enjoy today. I wasn't there in person. Kevin had set up a secure video feed so I could watch from Brooke's living room. Nola sat beside me, holding my hand. Gwen sat on my other side. We watched the lobby camera as Brooke and Jared walked through the front door. Brooke looked perfect. Professional dress, simple jewelry, and a carefully practiced look of concern on her face. She was carrying a leather folder, the same one from her home office, I realized, stuffed with forged documents and stolen dreams. Jared looked like he was about to throw up. He was sweating through his nice shirt, his eyes jumping around the lobby. He knew something was wrong with this plan. He always had. But he was too weak, too afraid of his wife, to stop it. They walked up to the receptionist, smiled, and gave their names. The receptionist smiled back and led them down a hallway toward the conference room, where 3 people were waiting. Brooke entered first. Confident. Ready to finish the biggest theft of her life. Warren Ducker sat at the head of the table, grey-haired and serious. He didn't smile when she walked in. He didn't stand to shake her hand. 2 other people sat at the table, a man and a woman, dressed in plain clothes, calm and professional. Brooke paused in the doorway. I thought this was a private meeting, she said, in that honey-sweet voice. The one she used when she felt something was wrong. Ducker's reply was flat. Mrs. Whitford, please have a seat. These are Detectives Morrison and Park. They have some questions about the documents you submitted. Through the video feed, I watched my sister's face change, just for a second. Confusion. Then quick calculation. Then a decision. She sat down, crossed her legs, and folded her hands on the table. Of course, she said smoothly. I'm happy to help. Is there a problem with the paperwork? Detective Morrison's tone was calm, almost friendly. She asked Brooke to confirm her identity, her relationship to me, and her role as co-trustee of our parents' estate. Brooke confirmed everything. Smooth. Confident. Completely sure of herself, she still believed she could talk her way out of it. Then Detective Morrison placed 2 documents on the table, side by side. On the left was my signature from the forged authorization forms. On the right was my real signature from verified bank records. Mrs. Whitford, Morrison said, can you explain why these signatures don't match? For a split second, barely a heartbeat, I saw panic flash across Brooke's face. Then the mask snapped back into place. My sister has very inconsistent handwriting, Brooke said. She always has. And honestly, she's not mentally well. I have documentation about her instability. I can show you. Detective Park cut her off. We've reviewed your documentation. The notes about your sister's supposed mental health issues. He paused. Interesting thing is, her employer describes her as one of the most detail-oriented people they've ever worked with. Her doctor confirms she's in excellent mental and physical health. 3 colleagues provided statements describing her as exceptionally stable and trustworthy. The mask started to crack. They don't see her the way I do. Family knows the truth. Family knows the truth, Mrs. Whitford, Morrison replied, her voice still calm but edged with steel. Now, we have bank records showing $180,000 in unauthorized withdrawals over 14 months. We have email exchanges with this office discussing emergency trust transfers. We have forensic handwriting analysis confirming forgery. She placed another document on the table. And we have lab results from the tea you prepared. A concentrated mix of sedatives and laxatives, enough to put someone in the hospital for days. Jared made a small, broken sound, like a wounded animal. Brooke froze. The honey-sweet expression was gone. What remained was something cold and trapped. Then Detective Morrison picked up a tablet. There's one more piece of evidence we'd like you to hear. She tapped the screen. A child's voice filled the conference room. Clear. Steady. Impossible to ignore. I was 3 years old when my mommy told me that if I ever talked again, something bad would happen to Aunt Lisa. She said my voice was dangerous. That every word I said would hurt her. So I stopped talking for 5 years to protect my aunt. The recording kept playing. Nola calmly described everything. What she overheard at 3 years old, the phone call, the threats, and the night before the fake cruise. Every detail came out in that careful, serious voice. I couldn't let Mommy hurt Auntie Lisa. She's the only one who ever really saw me. Even when I couldn't talk, she listened. The recording ended. The room went silent. And if this story has you on the edge of your seat, take just 1 second to hit like and subscribe. Your support truly means everything to me, and I read every comment. Now, let's finish this. Brooke stared at the tablet like it had grown teeth and bitten her. She can't, she's mute, Brooke said sharply. She's been mute since she was 3. She can't talk. This is fake. You fabricated the lie, Mrs. Whitford, Detective Morrison said softly. That calm tone somehow made it worse. You just confirmed that you believed your daughter couldn't speak. But according to the real medical records, not the story you told your family, Nola was diagnosed with selective mutism, a psychological condition often caused by fear or trauma. She paused, letting it sink in. Your daughter stopped speaking because you terrorized her into silence for 5 years. That's child psychological abuse, on top of fraud, forgery, and attempted poisoning. Brooke's face twisted. The mask didn't just crack. It shattered. What came out was ugly. Raw. The real Brooke, finally exposed. Visible. She was supposed to stay quiet. She was never supposed to. Brooke, Jared said, his voice shaking. Stop talking. Just stop. He turned to the detectives. I want a lawyer. A separate lawyer. I'll cooperate. I'll tell you everything. She planned all of it, the signatures, the transfers, the tea. I was scared of her. I'll testify. Whatever you need. Brooke spun toward him, rage exploding out of her. You pathetic coward. After everything I did for us, Mrs. Whitford, Detective Park said as he stood up, you are under arrest. Please stand and place your hands behind your back. The handcuffs clicked around her wrists. She was still talking, still arguing, still trying to explain and control the room. But there was no one left to manipulate. Everyone had seen the evidence. Everyone had heard her own daughter's voice. She was led out of the conference room, through the building, and into a waiting police car. I watched through the video feed as my sister, the golden child, the perfect mother, the woman who terrorized a 3-year-old into silence and tried to poison her own sister, disappeared into the back seat. I felt Nola squeeze my hand. I looked down at her. It's over, she whispered. It's over. Gwen let out a long breath. Well, she said, I guess they'll want that Mother of the Year plaque back. Think we should mail it to her new address, behind bars. I almost laughed. Almost. Justice was coming. But there was one more thing I had to do. 2 weeks later, Franklin County Family Court. The courtroom was small and plain. No dramatic wood panels like in movies. Just fluorescent lights, uncomfortable chairs, and a judge's bench that had seen 1,000 broken families. But today, something was being put back together. I sat at the front table wearing my best professional outfit, the same one I wore to important client meetings. This mattered more than any client meeting ever had. Nola sat beside me. She had chosen her own dress that morning. Purple, her favorite color. She had brushed her own hair. She was nervous, I could tell. Her foot bounced under the table, but she wasn't silent anymore. The judge reviewed the case file. Brooke's arrest. The fraud charges. The forgery. The attempted poisoning. 5 years of psychological abuse inflicted on a child. Jared had signed away his parental rights in exchange for cooperating with prosecutors. He had known about everything. He had done nothing to stop it. He didn't deserve to be Nola's father. And somewhere in that weak, cowardly heart of his, he knew it. The judge looked up from the papers. He was an older man with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. I've reviewed the emergency custody petition, he said. Given the circumstances, the arrest of the mother, the cooperation of the father, and the extensive documentation of psychological abuse, I'm prepared to rule. He turned his attention to Nola, not to me. He spoke directly to her. Young lady, I understand you've recently started speaking again after many years of silence. That took tremendous courage. Nola nodded. She was gripping my hand so tightly my fingers were going numb. I'd like to ask you directly, in your own words, the judge said. Where would you like to live? Nola looked at me, then at the judge, then back at me, and then she stood up. 8 years old. 4 feet tall. Wearing a purple dress. Carrying more bravery than most adults ever manage. I want to live with my Aunt Lisa, she said. Her voice was clear. Healing didn't happen all at once. It didn't happen overnight. There were bad days when she went quiet again, when the old fear crept back in and wrapped around her like a shadow. But there were more good days than bad ones. Days when she laughed out loud. Days when she sang in the shower without caring who heard. Days when she came home from school overflowing with stories about new friends, kids who never knew her as the mute girl, only as Nola. Brooke was charged with multiple felonies. The evidence was undeniable. She accepted a plea deal to avoid going to trial. I didn't attend the hearings. I had better things to do. The trust was frozen and fully audited. Most of the stolen money was traced and recovered. I was named sole trustee and managed it carefully, for our future, mine and Nola's. I sold the family house. There were too many memories there, too tangled and heavy. I used part of the money to set up an education fund for Nola. The rest went into savings. Real walkaway money. Doubled. Sometimes I think about my mother. About the letter she wrote to Brooke, holding her ground even as cancer was stealing her strength. About the quiet warning she gave her granddaughter. Something's wrong in her heart. Patricia Reese saw the truth about her own daughter. And even in death, she protected the people who deserved protection. I like to believe she would be proud of how things turned out. Last Saturday morning, Nola and I had breakfast on my small apartment balcony. Nothing special, just pancakes, orange juice, and early autumn sunlight. Nola was telling me about a dream she'd had. It involved a penguin who could drive a car, a castle made entirely of waffles, and a very polite dragon named Gerald who apologized every time he accidentally set something on fire. It made absolutely no sense. It was perfect. I sipped my coffee and listened. Really listened.